I want y'all to know this man is amazing, and his wife is amazing. Their story of the way God has directed your path. I'm just glad I've gotten to know you in this short period of time. And if you weren't in chapel today, the students were glued to you. Their eyes were on you. They were paying attention. And I think one of the reasons why is because you speak authentically. You share what's on your heart, but what has been on your heart is just not what it is today. It's a lifetime worth of experience, and he was able to give, in a short period of time of 20 minutes, enough of fuel for the fire for our students to make it through finals and then on to some of the rest of their life. I've got a ton of questions, and they're all on cards here. But I can tell you,
I'm nervous when the president
wants
to question me as a football
player. And I was in.
I got a lot of questions.
Why did you spend the money on that turf? Yeah. You didn't need that.
Why did you run that on the goal line? But it worked before.
But I'll tell you, as an attorney, it's one of my favorite things to do is ask questions because you learn so much. But I'm going to share with them what I shared with you. This is a room full of pastors who love people and have given up their lives in order to invest in someone else.
All in this area?
Yes. And they
I'll
are...
just shake hands with all of you. I love pastors. Morris is already my friend.
And these folks have given their lives. I heard a little bit about your salvation experience, but can you share with them just your boyhood experience?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Snyder, Texas, and I was the son of Bill and Inez Teaff. They were Depression marriage. I was born in 1933. Yes, that makes me 85 years old, but it's just a number, folks. You know, they were amazing folks because it was Depression, and my dad couldn't get a job anywhere. I was a baby, and you know, they had to come up with a way to make money to live. We lived in a little two-room rock house. One room was a bedroom, the other one was whatever setting area you had in the kitchen. 2 rooms, rock. That's where I started. 2 beds. They had a bigger bed and I had a smaller bed. And they told me, I don't remember any of this, that during the night if it's cold, I'd just jump over to their bed, get in the middle between them and stay warm, you know. But they were so amazing, my parents. And one of the things that touched my life and taught me a great lesson, my daddy couldn't find a job anywhere. So there was a place there in town on the highway, Lubbock Highway, going north. A man owned it named Stinson. And it was Stinson Motor Company, but it was more than that. It was the bus stop. All the buses stopped there. That's where you got on the bus. It was a garage. They sold Pontiacs and Chevrolets. And they had a tourist court. And the garage part where they worked on cars was one of the best in all of that part of West Texas. So it was a huge, huge business. One morning, my dad walked from that little house about 7 or 8 blocks over to the highway. It was morning when the morning man came in and opened up Mr. Stinson's business. And my dad, after the morning man opened it up, he just walked in the front door, went to the back, found a broom, started sweeping. Morning man thought Mr. Stinson had hired my dad. Mr. Stinson came in later that morning and walked in and said, "Who's that sweeping?" He said, "I don't know, I thought you hired him." I said, "No, I didn't hire him." Mr. Stinson goes out. Said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Bill Teaff." So what are you doing here? "I'm working." "Why are you working?" "Because when you see how hard I work, you'll hire me."
Wow.
And they hired, Mr. Stinson hired Daddy that day. He was there 20 years, ended up a manager over everything. But it taught me one of the great lessons of life. You know, it is you get out what you put in. And where there was nothing, my father, by his effort, was able to create a job for my mother and for me. And it left an impression on me that I never forgot. I'm sorry, I have no patience with people that say I can't find a job. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry about that, but it's just ingrained. There's work if you want to find it. So that gave me the foundation for everything that happened to me. And what was the question? I got off. I'm sorry.
I wanted to talk to you about your faith, but I could see there's before I come back to that, you mentioned your dad seeing the possibilities and doing something where nothing existed.
Yes.
I want to skip over your salvation experience, come back to that.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned to me about taking over responsibility for Baylor, and it was not a winning program, and there were no facilities.
No.
I mean, you went through the list of things that said no, 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 and yet your wife said, You're going. You're going
to Baylor. She said, I had no interest. And the next morning, Jack Patterson was the athletic director, and I'd known him through track, and he'd been trying to hire me. And honestly, they told me later, they offered the job to, he had coached track at Texas. They offered the job to every coach, all the way down to the freshman's assistant. And all of them turned him down. So he calls me and says, please come. I said, well, Coach Patterson, can y'all send a plane for me? I'll come talk to you, but I'm not interested. I'm going back to Tech. He said, just rent one. So we went out, rented a small plane, flew over to Waco, and the story that he's referring to is the night before Jack Patterson called me and told me to come. They had hired Rudy Feldman, who was coach at New Mexico. So we're sitting in our room, that living room, looking television, and I had the paper in my hand. And when they announced that, I said, "Oh, thank goodness, Jack Patterson will quit calling me." And I could tell she was looking at me. I said, "What?" She said, "You're going to Baylor." I said, "They just hired somebody. I'm not going. I don't want to go. There's nothing." And they just hired somebody. How's that? You're going to Baylor. Next morning, 10 o'clock, Jack Patterson called me in my office. Rudy Feldman had turned him down after he got to the campus and went back to New Mexico. He said, "Coach, please come." So we went. God told me, and people asked me, "Well, how did he tell you?" I said, that's a hard thing. I think every Christian deals with that because it's just one of those things that you know that you know. Mm-hmm. And I didn't hear any voice, but something within me said, "Okay, take the challenge." And it was a challenge.
Mm-hmm. And that other voice was your wife. So there's a lot of pastors in the room here that maybe they've walked into a situation where they go, "Wow,
yeah,
I'm the 24th person on the line and I don't even want it."
Yeah.
What, you make the decision and you commit to it and you say, "God, I'm committed to this." But what goes on from that point to success and excellence? Tell me about the hard work of the process.
That is a great question, and interestingly enough, of all the interviews, hundreds of them I've done, nobody has asked me specifically that question. Mm-hmm. The answer is not hard to, it is hard to describe because a lot of it goes back to who I developed into. Who was I when I went in? Why would God lead me to that kind of situation? They had no grass on the football field. That was the stadium where they played games, and it was the workout field for every sport that did anything outdoors. No practice fields. No weight room. There was nothing there. Why would God lead me to a place like that? I was going back to Tech. as the head coach. But God, as you all know, as pastors, works in mysterious ways. How did Donnell, why did she say that to me? Why did you say that? But it's such a fascinating story because I had no reason to go there. And it is much like you pastors. Because when God calls you to a place, you know, you don't know exactly what you're getting into. You've got some control, but when he calls you there, when God calls you there, you're going to go. And you're going to take on whatever's there. And I think that was the thing, that I felt called to do the job. And I felt that if I would give my total effort in every way, if I would be positive about it, and that I was willing to be disciplined and self-controlled in everything that I did as the head coach, and that through the love of God, that I had learned to love others. And so it was fascinating how we were able to recruit with nothing. And it all came down, I think, to the fact that mothers in particular, I recruited mamas. If you got mama, you got that boy. And I recruited mamas. And I think mamas could see into my heart that they knew what I was going to try to do and that I had to have quality people to do it. See, you need to understand, and this goes for pastors too, we're no better in anything than the people we surround ourselves with. Right? Is that an amen? Amen? And it's everywhere. Whatever you do, you have to surround yourself with the kind of people that will allow you to be successful. And if you don't have them, they have to have the capacity for you to train them. Mm-hmm. If they don't have that, send them on their way. Mm-hmm. True. But anyway, what happened is that, I wrote a book called I Believe after we won the first championships. First championship in 50 years. First time we beat Texas in 19 years. We won the championship. And I wrote a book about it because everybody was wanting to know how in the world you can take nothing and turn it into something. So I wrote a book, it's called I Believe. And it is the essence of how we did it. I came in believing that I could turn the program around because I believed God wanted me to do it. Mm-hmm. So I was determined. Nothing was going to deter me. We had nothing. There's not a blade of grass on the football field that we played in and practiced in. There wasn't a weight room. They had a 4-station, universal gym for the entire athletic program. Entire athletic program. I said, that's the weight room? That's the weight room. I get it. Great story about that. 2 of them, I needed AstroTurf, and if any of you ever knew about Judge McCall, Judge, you were a curmudgeon. He's gone now. But he was, he was tighter than Dick's hat band, how tight. So I need that $250,000 to buy me some AstroTurf. I'm going to beat Texas, and that's what I told him. Oh, well, finally he said, you can do it if you can raise the money. I didn't know anybody at Baylor, $250,000. When I took the job, there was a guy from down in Corpus Christi, Texas, named Ralph Storm, called me, and I thought he was Clem Cadettlehoper on the phone. Sounded like it. And he said to me, Coach Teaff, I'm sure appreciating you taking that job. We need somebody to fix our program. And if you ever need anything, you just call me. I didn't, yeah, you got it. So I thought old Ralph, when I found out that I could do it if I could raise $250,000, and I didn't know Ralph. I'd never seen him, never met him. Picked up the phone, had his number, called him, he answered the phone. I said, no, Storm, this is Coach Teaff. Hey, Coach, how you going up there? And I said, fine, but you told me to call you if I need something. Yeah, that's what I told you. I need AstroTurf. We're going to beat Texas, I got to have AstroTurf. Not a blade of grass on that field. I don't have a practice field. I got to have it. How much? I said, $250,000. Quiet on the other end of the phone. He said, okay. Just like that. So we got AstroTurf. And this is a good story too. Had no weight room. You'll like this. So I said to Judge McCall, I said, here's the plan. I can build underneath the stadium. I can build this room out of cinder blocks. I don't need air conditioner, heating. You know, we're toughing them up. Don't worry about that. But we got weight, and I can get weights, and I get the whole thing for $50,000. Same answer. Well, if you can raise the money. Where am I going to get $50,000? I can't ask Mr. Storm. So Charlie Jones was in the development department at Baylor. Loved football. He'd come by and see me every day when he was in town. He was on the road a lot. He must have come in that day because I was sitting behind my desk forlorn looking, I'm sure. He said, what's wrong, Coach? And I said, I need a weight room. Judge McCall said I could build one, but I have to raise $50,000, and I don't know anybody, Charlie. Let me look around, he said. I said, okay. So about a week later, he called me. He said, I'll come over, and I said, yes. He came over to my office, walked in, and he said, I got the money, Coach, but you won't take it. I said, what? He said, I got the $50,000, but you won't take it. I said, well, won't you just try me? He said, okay, this little old lady in Fort Worth gave me $50,000 in Anheuser-Busch stock. And I know you won't take it. I said, the heck I won't. I said, the devil's had that money long enough.
Yes.
That'll creep, brother. Okay.
Oh, wow. My goodness. I'm forgetting my questions.
Sorry, that was a long answer.
That was a good one. So as you're going through that process and you get these bright points that come, the AstroTurf, the weight room, did you ever wake up in the morning, one morning go, where fear just sat on your back and said, you can't do this?
No.
Never.
Never. Wow. Never one time.
Why did that never happen to you?
Because I believed it could happen. That's the reason I wrote the book. The title of it is I Believe. I believe was the foundation of what we were able to do. Off the field and on the field. We recruited young people that had 4 characteristics. And if everybody did this, they wouldn't be having problems like Baylor had. Number 1, they had to be able to get into Baylor University, and number 2, they had to extremely desire a degree. That's number 1. Number 2 was their character. And the way we found out about their character, we interviewed everybody they had any contact with. We found out who they associated with and then investigated them.
Wow.
We asked character references on the key people, the principals, the superintendents, the teachers, of how this young man conducts himself. If he was involved in a church, one of my staff would go to the pastor and ask about it. Because you have to have character if you want to graduate from college and if you want to be successful in life, I believe. Because that character will allow you to do the things that are necessary to do what you need to do whatever. Whether it's win a football game, or do at night when nobody's watching, what you do in the deepest, darkest part of the night, that's your character. And so the foundation of wanting a degree, they didn't have to be Phi Beta Kappa, but if they wanted a degree, they were going to get one. Because they were going to sit on the front row in every class. They were going to take notes, and they were going to look interested if they weren't interested. They weren't going to be messing around, doing something on a notepad or just daydreaming. Their responsibility as students at Baylor University, when they went in that classroom, their full attention to that teacher. They were to never be late, ever. That is a negative thing for any teacher, to have a person walk in late. And if they'll do it one time, they'll make it a habit. And they'll do it again, and then again. And by the time they get to the end of the class, even if they've done a lot of their work and it's pretty close, teachers are human beings. I said to the players, you know, they're gonna treat you like you treated them. You treat them like you want to be treated, and you're going to find that they're going to be gracious to you. And they were. You know, it's just human nature. So by doing that, it brought the university on board with what we were trying to do. And so then here's the thing that I think I said this morning. You can't succeed in anything unless you have a plan. And that plan has to be devised so that it will end up successful. It can't just be any plan. It's got to be directed as the goal that you're trying to reach. And so a plan is only a plan until you what? Execute the plan. And if you execute the plan, then you've got to have the preparation in between the goal and the execution. See, just apply this to football. And that's where it just bloomed for us. It worked in the classroom. But it bloomed for us because they realized they were getting the preparation. And it was going to be about their effort and their attitude. And so in practice, we had a plan, then we executed the plan, then they began to believe in the plan. If they believed in the plan, then they were confident, and they began to believe in themselves that they could accomplish whatever their assignment was and their goal. So it was one of those things that came together, and bingo, we're beating everybody with kids that nobody wanted. Baylor, before I got there, and this is the gospel truth, and it's hard to believe, they went to Dallas with a bus, and they'd go around to high schools, and anybody get on the bus and go to Baylor got a scholarship. That's who I was playing with at start out. But many of those young men turned out to be great players for us, all conference, all American. It was a display that everybody in life should try to understand. And that's why I wrote the book, is how do you get from 0 to 100 in that short a period of time? And it all comes down to the individual. It comes down to your, as coaches, the plan you give them, their willingness to work the plan. I mean work, hard work, to work the plan, and then execute the plan. If you execute the plan on game day, you're going to win. You're going to win. Where you don't win is when you don't execute the plan. Simple as that. So that's how we won.
You mentioned to me when we were talking about you being a deacon, that you're a deacon at a very young age.
Yes.
And you used a term when you talked to your pastor.
Yes.
I want you to share with the pastors that.
Well, I was 22. We had just gotten married. We were living in Lubbock, and we were going to this church, and very faithful. And for some reason, they chose me to be a deacon in the church. And so I went to the pastor and told him, I said, I will be a deacon in the church, but I want you to know that I will be the pastor's deacon. He said, what do you mean? I said, every pastor, I believe, needs somebody in that room that's his deacon. And I was. I was deacon in every church that I went to. First of all in Lubbock. Then we went to McMurray, and we were in the Baptist church. Remember that old show, I was a FBI for somebody, you know, the deal. Well, I was a Baptist for the Methodist. I was a Baptist in that group. That's why I always loved Hardin-Simmons. I was a Baptist, you know. But, you know. You
still beat us, though. I mean, when you were at McMurray, you didn't have a problem with beating a Baptist school.
I did not.
Okay.
I never had a problem beating anybody. Particularly Aggies and Texas. Sorry. But, you know, you just hit on something that I haven't really talked about that much. But, you know, it's winning goes to really the thing that I talked about is who you surround yourself with, and then how you train and develop, and then what they come in contact with mentally. And our guys began to believe, because they were prepared. They knew they had worked hard. I mean, really hard. I was a track coach for years, so I knew how to teach running, and we ran. I promised them, you will never, ever lose a game in the fourth quarter because you're not in condition. Mm-hmm. You watch in the fourth quarter, particularly early in the season, who wins in the fourth quarter? The team that's conditioned. The Bible says something about that. If you're going to run the race, you got to be conditioned, right? You got to finish the race. And that was the whole concept. Prepare and then finish. And if you finish, strong, you're going to win because we're prepared. We know what they're going to do. We know how to stop it. You're going to stop it. We know what they do on defense, and we're going to score. You, offense, are going to score. Kicking game, we know what they're going to do. They're going to try to block the punch from over here. We've got that covered. You kick the ball, get coverage, maybe even get a turnover. So it was all prepared. And so when they won, everybody thought, oh, well, one of the big things that irritates me is we were playing Texas, and we had prepared to beat them. And my quarterback was Neil Jeffrey. He's a great preacher. Mm-hmm. Stutters, profound stutterer. When I got to Baylor, I was walking down under the old stadium, no weight room, junky-looking thing, not a blade of grass on the field, and here comes a skinny-legged kid walking through there, and the coach showing me around said, "Come here, Neil." Neil came over there, and the guy, he was assistant coach, said, "Coach Teaff, I want you to meet your quarterbacks, Neil Jeffrey." I said, "Oh, great." I stuck out my hand, and he couldn't say a word. He just stuttered, and I said, "Oh, my gosh. No facilities and a stuttering quarterback. What have I gotten into?" But he turned out to be an All-American, and he was great. There was a big movie made about him. If you've ever seen it, is really great. We were playing TCU, and we were coming back at the end of the game to score. Scoreboard said third down. It was fourth. We were down on the goal line. We had one more play to score and win a game against TCU. And I heard Neil on the field hollering, "Clock, clock, clock." That's clock play, throw the ball out of bounds, stop the clock. "No, Neil, it's third down, fourth down." Threw the ball out of bounds. Game's done. It's over. And then in the dressing room was a really amazing scene that there was a lot of conversions across America over that scene. And I used to keep record of it, but I quit trying to keep the record of it. But it's the most viewed Christian video that's ever been done.
It's an amazing.
Yeah. Have you seen it?
I have. Can you walk us through it? Because it's emotional. It's an emotional experience in the locker room.
It really is. What they did is they came in. It was a series it was on television called The Athletes. And so they took somebody from every sport. And they chose me as the coach to be the so-called athlete. But for me, I told our players and our coaches, I said, this is about recruiting. Young people across America are going to see us. It's sponsored by FCA and some part of the Baptist organization. I don't remember what. But it was extremely well done. They brought a camera crew in and a producer, and they stayed all week with us. We were preparing for that TCU game. And so they filmed everything, all of our meetings, workouts. It was all in there. And I'm so excited because this is a recruiting tool that anybody would give anything for. Every FCA in America and every high school will see that. I said, oh my goodness. Now they're going to film the game. The game's with TCU. And we get in the game, and it's a really good game. Neil's had a pretty good game early. Then TCU got ahead of us, and Neil did a great job, got us down. We were touchdown and a field goal down, 2 touchdowns, we win. He drives us down, we score, defense holds TCU, they punt, we get the ball, and we're starting on a drive to win the game, clock's running down. and we get down on that 10-yard line, and what happened is Neil was mixed up on the plays and unintentionally threw the ball out of bounds, stopped the clock. It stopped the clock, but it was 4th down. And so they win the game. We go in the dressing room, and they've got the cameras set up all over the dressing room, and you don't even think about it. So it was one of the most natural scenes that's ever been filmed of a heartbroken team in their dressing room after a close loss. And I remember coming in, and they recorded all this, and I was standing close to where the door was. The lockers were all around, and I got their attention, and I told them, that we fell short. And I said, I know that Neil is brokenhearted. He was sitting over on the bench where he sat, and his arms, shoulders were, he was just brokenhearted. He was just crying so hard because he had made that mistake that possibly cost us the game. And so I just said to the group, I said, and he was like this, I said, Neil, get your head up. Look at me. He turned to look. We would not have had a chance to win this game had it not been for you. You played one of the great games that you've ever played. Do not take it on yourself that we lost this game. Now get your head up. And you could hear in the dressing room what was really amazing, just voices of the guys saying, we love you, Neil. We love you. It was one of those moments. And I can't tell you how many letters and phone calls I got where young men watching that film, and women too, came to Christ after that film. I don't know how God used it, but he used it. And that's why, I said a while ago, we don't know. You pastors know this better than anybody. We don't know how he's working, but he's working. Yes, and it was one of the toughest things, but yet it was one of the best things that ever happened, because it captured something. And then, of course, now the rest of the story, that was when he was a junior. And they turned around next year, we're playing Texas. They're picked number 1, Baylor's picked dead last, playing in Baylor Stadium. The Texas Orange filled up over half of the stadium. Our side was completely full crowd. We're down 24-7 at halftime. We leave the field, go to the old dressing rooms, and you had to go up some steps to get to the old dressing rooms in the old stadium. And I had been interviewed by somebody on the radio about blah, blah, yeah, we're behind, but the game's two halves, something like that. So I go on, and I'm walking up the steps. I look beside me, here comes Neil Jeffrey. I do a double take, I look at him, and he's grinning from ear to ear. I just grabbed his arm and stopped him. I said, what do you find funny about being down 24-7, halftime? He said, Coach, think about it. We got them right where we want them. That's exactly what he said. He said, think about it. Everything that we had planned is working. We just had some bad luck. Mm-hmm. But we know that this plan is going to work. Mm. And I said, when we get in that dressing room, you go left and I'll go right. You shake everybody's hand, look them in the eye, and tell them we got them right where we want them. End of the game, it was 34-24.
Yeah.
Neil Jeffrey believed. Mm-hmm. When you're down 24-7 at Tech, and they're number 1 and you're dead last, that's just an obnoxious thought to think you can win that game for most people. But we believed we could, and we did. And it changed everything. Changed the conference. Baylor University, honestly, I got it a little bit later that they were going to get out of the Southwest Conference and go down to a lower level and play. But after we beat Texas, all that changed the thinking. Mm-hmm. Then, of course, we go on and win the championship. Let me tell you a little story about integrity and character, and I love the man. Darrell Royal coached at Texas and was one of the greatest coaches of all time. They were number one. We were dead last. We beat them. We're in the dressing room, and good Lord, you talk about the celebration. And one of the men at the door came over to me and said, Coach Royal's outside and wants to come in and talk to the team. I said, let him in. It was like the parting of the Red Sea. Darryl walked in, and everybody's looking, gave him room. He just walked straight to me. The sea just parted right straight to me. He said, Coach, may I say a word to your team? I said, certainly, Coach Royal. He said, man, I want you to know that what you did tonight was no fluke. You beat us, and you beat us good. Now go on and win the championship. I'll take care of the Aggies.
Oh, wow.
The Aggies were the only team that beat us that year. So we were going to be tied with them. Last game of the season, Texas A&M play. Our players are all in front of the TV out at the old stadium. We had a little lounge out there, and they were all out there, and we were watching that game, Texas. If Texas wins, we go to the Cotton Bowl. We're the champions. And Darryl did what he said he'd do.
Wow.
He beat those old Aggies. Thank you, Darryl.
Let me say back at that locker room experience that you talked about, I even teared up when you were even talking about remembering that. I think the reason why I was so influenced by it was because I put myself in the Neil Jeffrey position.
Yep.
And when you hear God say, hey, get your head up, get your head up.
Yeah.
That said it all to say, look, that's what
right.
He speaks to me about.
Yeah.
That's the way He thinks of me. And
My
when
intention was for him to know that whatever he thought his sin was, so to speak, that it was no longer there. You don't have to hang your head to anybody. That was my subtle message to him. Get your head up, Neil. Look at me.
Yeah. Last question. RAs, Royal Ambassadors?
Royal Ambassadors. 2 stories.
Okay.
Number 1, I was a Royal Ambassador. Snyder, Texas. Mr. Inman, businessman in town, was our leader. He's the guy that led me to Christ. I was 12 years old. The Royal Ambassadors. I loved it. We were a pretty little rowdy group, I have to tell you. But we had fun, and it was neat. And here's a man that is not in our church, that's a Christian man, and he's there leading us as young people. And he's not preaching, but he's leading through his life. That's one of the important things that I learned. And it's a message that I continually preach to coaches, to parents. What you say to a child can only be backed up with the validity of your living what you say. If you tell a child something and you're not living that, they're going to get to it just like that. Same way, when you're coaches, you tell somebody something and then you turn around and I'll do it. I don't drink. And I think I'd probably like to drink, maybe. I don't know. But I don't drink. And you know why I don't drink? I decided early on, that one little thing right there. I don't smoke. Never have. Same reason. I'm going to be a coach. And when I tell a young man, alcohol is not good for you, and then he sees me with a beer in my hand somewhere, no validity. So I've never drank, I've never smoked, and I believe that as human beings, we have to do what we preach. As you preachers know this. You preach a sermon and you don't live that sermon, your congregation knows it. They're going to say, he's preaching to us. What about him? You know what I'm saying.
Any last words of encouragement for pastors who are on the front lines each and every day?
I'm still my pastor's deacon. I've been a deacon in every church I've ever attended. And that's just the way I am. You know, when we get in a discussion in a deacon's meeting, if there's something that comes up that involves the pastor, I'm the guy that says, now, okay, that's right, but let's look at this. Let's see what this means over here. And there's a balance there. And then this, what is being done, overshadows that, so it's in balance. You're 2-1. Just an explanation in a meeting room, because leadership in a deacon's body or in any group is the key. And you want, as pastors, to have that positive leadership that understands your purposes and your goals and is able to transmit that in that meeting room when you're not there. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean by pastor deacon.
Well, thank you. Can we give him some thanks for being here? I'm going to let them.
Whoa, how about that? Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much. Wow. Thank you. Please.
Now we've got a special gift for you and your wife. So let's, you want to bring these? Let me have these two over here.
Purple boots?
Oh. Well, it's something to protect you.
Oh, isn't that fantastic?
And that is from our football team this year. They've signed each and every one of the coaches and the players. Yes. Oh, my goodness. Okay, I hope.
I don't know.
Too tied.
I got the big head.
And then we've got a gift for you and your wife and some flowers. And we just so appreciate you coming and sharing. You don't know the deposits of wisdom that you've made on campus today, what they're going to do, but I know people are affected. I know I am.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you being here and giving up your time for us.
Well, this campus is unbelievable. We just took a tour of it, what's going on. And I'd just like to say to all you pastors, thank God for you.
Amen.
Thank you for what you do. Thank you for the circumstances under which you do it, and you still do it. Thank you for pastors' wives. Go home and hug your wife and give her a big kiss and say thank you for being there for me and supporting me. There's no difference in pastors and coaches. You got to have that distaff. And this woman over here, can you believe we've been married 63 years? That is not a record, but it's a heck of a good average.
Well, we're going to pray and then we're going to get on to work.